Do you ever feel a strange sense of sadness after completing a game? I like to refer to it as post-game depression. The emotions that players experience after completing a video game can be complex and varied, depending on factors such as the game's story, characters, gameplay, and personal experiences. Let's take a look at 9 main reasons what exactly this is and why we feel it. The first is a sense of accomplishment. Many video games offer players a sense of progress and achievement as they advance through levels, defeat bosses, and complete objectives. This sense of accomplishment can be a major motivation for players to continue playing, as they feel a sense of satisfaction and pride in their progress. However, when a player completes a game, they may experience a range of emotions, including a bittersweet feeling. On the one hand, completing a game can be an incredibly satisfying experience, as the player has achieved their goal and completed a journey. They may feel a sense of pride and accomplishment in what they have achieved, especially if the game was challenging or took a significant amount of time to complete. This feeling of satisfaction can be a positive emotion that players remember for a long time. On the other hand, completing a game can also be a bittersweet experience. The player may realize that the experience is over, and they may not be able to relive it in the same way. They may feel a sense of loss, as they say goodbye to the characters, story, and world that they have become attached to. This can be especially true for players who have spent a significant amount of time playing the game, or who have become emotionally invested in the story or characters. The second is emotional attachment. In many video games, the story, characters, and world can be incredibly engaging and immersive. Players can become emotionally invested in these aspects of the game, particularly if they have spent a lot of time playing it. They may come to care about the characters, their struggles and triumphs, and feel a sense of connection to the game world. This emotional investment can make completing the game a sad experience, as players have to say goodbye to these characters and the world they have become attached to. When a game ends, players may experience a sense of loss because they have to leave behind the characters and world that they have grown to love. This can be especially true for games that have a rich and detailed story or that allow players to make choices that affect the outcome of the game. In these cases, players may have invested a significant amount of time and effort into the game, and saying goodbye can be a difficult experience. In some cases, players may even experience a sense of grief or mourning when a game ends. This can be particularly true for games that have a poignant or emotional story, or that deal with difficult themes like loss, sacrifice, or mortality. When the game ends, players may feel a sense of emptiness or sadness because they have to confront the reality that the experience is over. The third is social connections. For many players, video games are not just a solo activity, but also a way to connect with others. Multiplayer games, in particular, can provide a social experience that allows players to interact with their friends or other gamers around the world. These games can create a sense of community, camaraderie, and shared experience among players. When a multiplayer game ends, players may feel a sense of loss or sadness because they won't be able to interact with their gaming friends in the same way or revisit the game's world together. Similarly, some single-player games may also have a social aspect, particularly if players share their progress or experiences with friends or family members. When the game ends, players may feel a sense of loss because they won't be able to share their experiences or revisit the game's world with others in the same way. This can be especially true for games that have a strong fan community, where players may have formed connections with others who share their love of the game. In some cases, the social aspect of gaming can be so important that players may feel a sense of isolation or loneliness when the game ends. This can be particularly true for players who don't have a strong social network outside of the game or who use gaming as a way to cope with social anxiety or other issues. The fourth is lack of closure. Some video games end with ambiguous or unsatisfying conclusions, leaving players feeling unfulfilled or disappointed. This can be particularly true for games that have a strong focus on storytelling or that have a complex and nuanced plot. When a game ends in this way, players may feel a sense of sadness or melancholy because they haven't received the closure or resolution they were expecting. In some cases, games may intentionally end in an ambiguous or open-ended way to encourage players to interpret the story or ending for themselves. While this approach can be effective in creating a sense of mystery or intrigue, it can also leave players feeling unfulfilled or disappointed if they were expecting a more definitive resolution. Similarly, games that have multiple possible endings or outcomes can leave players feeling unsure or dissatisfied with the ending they received. In these cases, players may feel like they didn't make the right choices or that they missed out on a more satisfying ending. When a game ends in an unsatisfying or ambiguous way, players may feel a sense of disappointment, frustration, or even anger. They may have invested a significant amount of time and emotional energy into the game, and not receiving a satisfactory ending can leave them feeling like the experience was incomplete or wasted. The fifth is post-game depression. Some players experience a type of post-game depression after completing a game they enjoyed. This phenomenon is sometimes referred to as post-game depression or post-game blues. It can be caused by a sudden loss of the excitement and stimulation that the game provided, leaving the player feeling empty, bored, or even depressed. Video games can be incredibly engaging and immersive, providing a sense of excitement, challenge, and accomplishment that can be difficult to replicate in other areas of life. When a player completes a game, they may suddenly find themselves without the sense of purpose or direction that the game provided. They may feel like they have lost a part of themselves or a sense of identity that was tied to the game. In some cases, post-game depression can be exacerbated by the fact that the player has spent a significant amount of time and energy on the game, to the point where it has become a major part of their daily routine or lifestyle. When the game ends, the player may feel like they are losing a part of themselves or a sense of community that they had with other players. Post-game depression can also be caused by the fact that the player has become so engrossed in the game that they have neglected other areas of their life, such as work, relationships, or self-care. When the game ends, they may suddenly realize the extent to which they have been neglecting these areas, leading to feelings of guilt, regret, or anxiety. The sixth is long-term commitment. Some video games require a significant time commitment to complete, especially open-world or RPG games. These types of games can offer vast worlds to explore, with numerous side quests, characters, and storylines to follow. When a player invests a lot of time and effort into a game like this, they may feel a strong attachment to the world and the character. As a result, when the game is over, the player may feel a sense of loss or sadness because it feels like they are losing a part of their life. They may have spent countless hours exploring the world, completing quests, and developing their character, forming a deep connection to the game in the process. When the game is over, they may feel like they are saying goodbye to a friend or a significant part of their life. In some cases, this sense of loss can be compounded by the fact that the game may have provided a sense of structure or routine to the player's daily life. For example, they may have set aside specific times each day to play the game or used it as a way to unwind after a long day at work. When the game is over, they may feel like they have lost a sense of structure or purpose in their life. The seventh is anticipation. Sometimes, players build up expectations for a game they've been anticipating for a long time. The anticipation can lead to high expectations for the game's story, gameplay, and overall experience. However, when they finally complete the game, they may feel a sense of disappointment or sadness because the experience did not live up to their expectations. There are several reasons why this can happen. For example, the game may have been hyped up too much before release, leading to unrealistic expectations. Alternatively, the game may have received a lot of positive reviews and media attention, creating an expectation that the game would be perfect. In some cases, the game may have been delayed several times, which can build up anticipation and expectations to unrealistic levels. When the game is finally released and played, the player may discover that it falls short of their expectations. The game may have flaws or issues that they did not expect, or the story may not have ended the way they wanted it to. As a result, they may feel a sense of disappointment or sadness when the game is over, especially if they invested a lot of time and money into it. The eighth is nostalgia. Video games have been around for several decades, and many players have grown up playing games from different eras. Playing a game from a particular era can evoke feelings of nostalgia for a simpler time in their life or a particular period in gaming history. When the game is over, they may feel sad because they can't revisit that time or place in the same way. For example, a player who grew up playing classic Nintendo games may feel nostalgic when playing a retro-style platformer game. The game may remind them of a simpler time in their life when they had fewer responsibilities and more free time to play games. When the game is over, they may feel a sense of loss or sadness because they can't go back to that time in the same way. In addition to nostalgia, some players may feel a sense of sadness when a game is over because it marks the end of an era in gaming history. For example, a player who grew up playing classic RPGs may feel sad when completing a modern RPG because it marks the end of a particular period in gaming history. They may feel that modern games don't have the same level of storytelling or depth that older games had. The ninth is fear of the unknown. After investing a significant amount of time and emotional energy into a video game, some players may feel a sense of anxiety or uncertainty about what comes next. They may feel unsure about what game to play next or worried that they won't be able to find another game they enjoy as much as the one they just finished. This is often referred to as post-game paralysis or gaming burnout. One reason for this anxiety may be that the player has become so invested in the world and characters of the game they just finished that they don't want to let go. They may be worried that they won't be able to find another game that can provide the same level of emotional engagement or narrative depth. Additionally, some players may feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of games available to them. With so many options to choose from, They may worry that they will waste their time on a game that doesn't live up to their expectations, or that they won't be able to find another game that suits their interests. Another factor that can contribute to post-game anxiety is the pressure to keep up with the latest games and trends. Players may worry that if they don't move on to the next big thing, they will be left behind and miss out on important cultural conversations or social interactions with other gamers. Speaking of a fear of the unknown, the greatest unknown might be that happens after the final curtain call. Do you ever think about the great beyond? I know I've thought about it many times during my gaming experiences. To hear more about that, click on the next video.